Hello, I'm Oliver Colling, and this is my 70s TV childhood. Welcome to another edition of my 70s TV childhood. We are a podcast which looks back fondly to what it was like to grow up in 1970s Britain, and the important part that television played in our and our families' lives back then. Now, before I get on to today's podcast, I'd like to remind listeners that we are about to launch a playable version of our popular theme tune round from our fortnightly quiz. We are very excited about this at my 70s TV Childhood Towers, and more news is to follow on the plans to launch that game very soon. But we'd like to ask you a favour. If you visit our blog at www.my70stvchildhood.com, you can let us know whether you might be interested in buying the game when it's released. There is no commitment at this stage, but it will help us to determine what size our first production run will be. Thanks to all of you who filled in the form so far, and it's worth saying again that any proceeds from the game will be used to contribute to the costs of producing the podcast, so we'll be very welcome. Thanks to all of you who've been in touch recently. It really does make a difference to hear how much you enjoy listening, and some of the memories you share with us are really quite moving. If you have any memories you'd like to share or suggestions for subjects for us to consider for future episodes, then you can get in touch by leaving a comment on our blog at www.my70stvchildhood.com or by visiting one of our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, X, LinkedIn or on YouTube. You can also email oliver@my70stvchildhood.com. I'm recording this episode quite close to the intended release date, which doesn't always happen, so I'm able to include some sad news. The much-loved TV presenter Judith Chalmers passed away this week aged 90, and it's made me bring forward a subject which we had in our production schedule for later in the summer. Judith Chalmers was synonymous with one thing for many TV viewers, and that was holidays. As one of the original hosts of ITV's long-running holiday show Wish You Were Here, Judith spent decades showing us all sorts of holiday destinations, and those featured became more and more exotic as time went on, and British holidaymakers became more sophisticated, and I suppose more affluent as well. I have spoken about holidays before on the podcast, particularly my family's regular summer holidays for a few weeks in August, usually in a holiday cottage and always in this country. But I wanted to reflect a bit more widely and look back at some of the holiday experiences we all enjoyed, or sometimes didn't, during our 70s childhoods. Thinking back, post-war Britain had been quite an austere place, and holidays seemed to follow that trend. For many families, they had 1 2-week holiday a year, usually when their place of work closed down for an annual holiday. Indeed, in Lancashire, where I'm from, different towns had different holiday weeks throughout the summer and into September. And during that time, most businesses in the town closed, and many people decamped en masse to Blackpool, Morecambe, Scarborough, or to other seaside locations. It's also worth remembering that most workers only had that 2 weeks as their annual holiday entitlement, so it was a really, really important thing for them and their families. There were also fewer cars on the roads, so many families travelled by train or by coach on their holidays, and pubs up and down the roads to holiday destinations were filled with coach parties on their way for some seaside fun. This was repeated up and down the country as families flocked to their favourite holiday resorts from Skegness to Southend for a week or two's fun. Holiday camps like Pontins and Butlins were full throughout the summer, and caravan parks flourished as families got their sea air and fish and chips. Many of us stayed at seaside B&Bs, often run by formidable and, I remember, really quite scary landladies. We must have been a very different society then, as do you remember? You had to get out of your B&B after breakfast, and you weren't allowed back in until you came back for your tea. As a young child, I remember hordes of miserable-looking families traipsing up and down the promenade at Blackpool in the wind and the rain, counting down the hours until they were allowed back into their bed and breakfast for their tea, which usually began with a choice of egg mayonnaise or fruit juice, I remember. But as the 60s went on, some Brits tired of the traditional seaside holiday, not least because of the unpredictability of the British climate, which could, well, let's face it, be beautiful or horrible in equal measure. and so people started to look further afield for their 2-week break. Intrepid travellers could now get affordable airfares to new and exciting destinations. So for some, it was goodbye to Bognor and hello to Benidorm. The concept of the package holiday had become more and more popular as well. Pay one price and you got your flights, hotel and half board in a brand new hotel on the Costa Brava. Can you imagine how exciting that must have seemed in the late 60s and early 70s? And television wasn't slow to react to this either. We mentioned this on at least one of our Christmas episodes, but TV advertising for holidays brought exciting new possibilities of trips abroad and beautiful people lying by swimming pools at a reasonable price. The moment we finished our Christmas dinner and reached Christmas Day tea time, that marked the start of months of relentless holiday advertisements.
Wonderful! Ah.
Must have been Horizon.
Many of the adverts were from the holiday companies themselves, and a whole new phenomenon was born. The idea of the travel rep. Scared of going to those funny foreign places? Well, companies like Thompson Holidays would make it all fine.
Thompson girl, my Thompson girl, it always comes so naturally to lend a hand. Thompson girl, no nonsense girl, on a Thompson holiday you know just where you stand. Happily, she sets you free, can't imagine anywhere you'd rather be. Together girl, so clever girl, the care she takes will make it all the perfect holiday.
Well, with all of this fancy foreign travel available, did it mean that the traditional holidays just faded away? Hell no. Here's a mid-70s advert for Pontins.
Now's the time to get your Pontins holiday brochure, full of new ideas at guaranteed prices. Like Pontins Self-Catering. A family of 4 can spend a week off-peak from only £42 plus VAT. No more than £93 plus VAT in peak season. Or follow the sun. Go Pontinental. You'll be amazed. Tell 'em, Sir Fred.
Go Pontin, and I'll promise you the best holidays value money can buy.
Phone now or send a press coupon for the Pontins holiday brochure.
And remember, book early.
As Fred always advised, book early. I'd also forgotten until I saw this that Pontins tried to go international with their Pontinental offering of holiday camps. However, the prospect of sun, sangria and sex proved a bit more popular than a Nobilinese contest in Ibiza, and the holiday camps stayed more of a UK experience. Now, I never went to a holiday camp as a child, although several of my school friends did, and always seemed to have a wonderful time. But the one I remember first seeing was Pontins in Blackpool, which reminded me of a Second World War prisoner of war camp from the outside, as it had high barbed wire fences, and it had a guardhouse with barriers across the road, just like something from a war film. I always wondered whether the fences were to keep people out, or to keep the holidaymakers in. Never quite resolved that one. But even if you couldn't face taking a flight to Spain, there were new exotic options for you at home, as this ad from Ho Season's Holidays from the mid-70s shows.
Now is the time to send us a line for your Ho Season's boating brochure. We've got all kinds of craft that'll suit you just fine for messing about on the water. Sailboats, canal boats, and cruises too. All Britain's waterways waiting for you.
Ho Seasons, Britain's biggest and best holiday fleet, from only £19 per person per week. Ring now for your free boating brochure. Ho Seasons, big value freedom holidays.
Can you imagine taking a holiday on a boat? How exciting would that have been? Both the BBC and ITV recognised early on that their increasingly affluent viewers wanted to do something different with their 2-week break, so developed programmes to cater for that demand. The BBC show Holiday began its life in 1969 as a show called Holiday 69, which actually sounds a bit more like a Club 1830 advertising campaign than a serious TV show, but times were different, so I'm sure nobody thought any the worse of it. It was hosted by Cliff Michelmore and ran for about 12 weeks from around New Year every year during the 70s, and took the name of the year, so we had Holiday 70, Holiday 71, Holiday 72, etc, etc. The show used to follow the same format where celebrities, well, that's maybe pushing it a bit far, it was usually BBC staff, were sent to various places to experience and report on what the holiday was like, thus opening up a whole unknown world to the British viewing public and opening our eyes to the possibilities of foreign travel. It also explored holidays which had, until featured, seemed like the preserve of the rich and famous, like taking a cruise.
Cruising is a sunlit world of peace and leisure, the ideal holiday for the bustling 60s. Yet somehow the atmosphere of life on Chusan, one of P&O's proud white liners, is largely unchanged from the cruising 30s. On board ship, limited space and design leave little scope for radical change. Cruise types prefer the familiarity of traditional games. Most passengers settle for a free tub of ice cream to keep them going between breakfast and lunch. The energetic can use a small swimming pool, one to each class, or join in the games competitions. We found, though, that as the advertising suggests, a book from the ship's library is an almost vital piece of cruise equipment for whiling away the time. Sunbathing in a sheltered spot is a quickly learned art, for the constant sea breezes can make life difficult. With sunbathing a priority, most people have to search for a place of their own, and on ships these days, when they refer to a full spread of canvas, it doesn't mean sails are back in fashion. One galley serves all passengers aboard, but in the tourist class dining saloon there is less of a choice. But there's plenty for all, and you may get through 4 full meals a day with a late supper too, if you feel like it. Cruise ships have always been proud of their huge menus, but as most passengers take little exercise, there seems hardly any point in offering 47 items at breakfast or a 5-course dinner with a choice of 7 main dishes. Still, perhaps eating helps keep some people's boredom at bay.
Not to be outdone by the BBC, ITV launched Wish You Were Here in January 1974, and its approach was reasonably similar to its BBC rival, although it went out on a Tuesday evening rather than a Sunday afternoon. Judith Chalmers was one of the original presenters, alongside Chris Kelly of Clapperboard fame. Every week they took us to new places, so as well as Spain and Greece, the show also tried to show us some more interesting holidays close to home, like this feature from 1977.
The Isle of Man, a place of curiosities and contrasts. But until they get here, most people imagine it to be all cats, candy floss, kippers and TT races. Douglas, the big resort, has day and night action. Beyond lie hills and glens for walking and pony trekking. Deserted sandy coves, little harbours for sailors and fishermen. And trout streams like the Silver Burn. Here at Ballasala, it flows under the 14th century Monk's Bridge, past the ruins of Russian Abbey and at the Gilby stables. Now, a rip-roaring racing motorbike may be a quicker way of getting round the TT course, but for the lanes and byways, give me a dignified landau and the clip-clop of horses' hooves. For 100 years, the Gilby horses were known in England for their perfect turnout. Now, Walter Gilby has moved them to his Manx farm. Visitors can see them in summer at these stables, together with his fine collection of old carriages and wagons, all kept in perfect condition. The horses are not quite as high-spirited as their names suggest. Brandy, whiskey, vodka, and of course, gin. You can hire horses and carriage with uniformed coachman and groom for weddings, or just a leisurely trip around Manx countryside. This landau, which last century aristocrats used for formal occasions, takes 4 passengers. It costs about £25 for a 2-hour run. But for 20 pence, you can ride in a splendid exercise break. There's a similar one called a charabanc, which gave its name to the early motor coaches.
£25 for 2 hours in a carriage in 1977. That sounds a bit steep to me, Judith. I think I'll go for the 20p ride in the charabanc, please. But as noble as it was to highlight the attractions of the Isle of Man, Judith also took us to much more exotic locations.
This is the only way to get to the Greek island of Egina, by ferry boat. And as you step ashore, the sights and sounds of Greece stun you nearly as much as the warmth of her climate and her people. In Greece, you step back in time. This temple has 2,500 years of history, and through the ages, millions must have stood by these columns to admire the view. Egina gets its name from a girlfriend of the god Zeus. He was already married to Hera when he met and fell in love with the beautiful nymph Egina. And to keep her out of his wife's way, he brought her here to this island. It used to be thought that this temple was dedicated to Zeus, but it's now known that it was a Phaea's temple. It was built nearly 500 years BC, and today it's regarded as the third best preserved temple in Greece, with 32 columns still standing. Archaeologists are still digging on the island, but some of the treasures have been taken from here to a museum in Egina town, 10 miles away. There are a variety of hotels used by tour operators in and around the town. This one, the Avra, near the centre, is in the cheaper price bracket. The rooms have showers and balconies, and the hotel restaurant has one of the best positions in the town. Most guests take only bed and breakfast, and for that, a 2-week package holiday flying from Gatwick would cost £152. Island hopping by boat is one of the great joys of a Greek holiday, as each one has a character all of its own. You can board the luxurious Saronic Star at Aya Marina and visit the nearby islands of Hydra and Poros on a 1-day cruise. The ship is new, very fast and well designed. It has a swimming pool, air conditioning and bars. The luxury price of nearly £14 a head, including lunch on board, means that for a family it really is an expensive day out. But you do get to see other islands, like Hydra, barren and rocky, with only one town, where the houses stand in serried ranks behind the little harbour like a vast amphitheatre.
I still would love to go island hopping in the Greek islands, so that one's still on my list. Hopefully I'll be following in Judith's footsteps very soon. So glamorous holiday locations, combined with cheap package holidays, took off enormously in the 1970s. According to ABTA, 2.8 million UK citizens took their holidays abroad in 1968. Now compare that with 8 million in 1973. That's a huge jump in such a short time, and shows how revolutionary the impact of the package holiday was. Although, unfortunately, it didn't cut much ice with my parents, who remained convinced that there was no point in taking a foreign holiday because there was always so much to see in the United Kingdom. I dare say I'm not the only one who that applied to. But there were, of course, some downsides to this newfound freedom to fly away to the sun. Stories of travellers arriving at their luxury Spanish hotels to find they hadn't been fully completed and building work was going on day and night, which made a relaxing holiday impossible. Hotels with menus serving sausage, beans and chips rather than local cuisine because that's what the British wanted. And of course, the almost annual collapse of a major tour operator due to financial failure, leaving Brits stranded in Spain or at the airport without a holiday. I think for me the best representation of this isn't a TV show, but is in the film Carry On Abroad, where Sid James, Joan Sims, Kenneth Connor, Kenneth Williams and the rest of the gang experience a package holiday trip to the Spanish island of Els Bells. If you haven't seen it, I'd recommend you watch it. But overall, that world that Cliff, Judith and the other TV presenters showed us was a real eye-opener for many of us, and it chimed in with the changing tastes of an increasingly adventurous population who developed a taste for sunshine and a bit of foreign travel. The old seaside resorts and holiday camps battled on, but were seriously damaged by the rise in package holidays and foreign trips. Through the 80s and 90s, that decline continued, and today we see the result of this as many seaside resorts are really a shadow of their former selves. So thank you, Judith Chalmers, for showing us that travel needn't mean a week in Brighton or Eastbourne, but can be the gateway to new experiences and, most importantly for us UK holidaymakers, more or less guaranteed sunshine. We won't forget you. What were your 70s holidays like? Did you get to go to Spain or Greece, or was it more like Bangor or Bridlington? Let us know by leaving a comment at www.my70stvchildhood.com or on one of our many social media sites, or by emailing oliver@my70stvchildhood.com. We'll be back next week with the next in our series of 70s TV related trivia quizzes, and in a fortnight's time for our next podcast. Until then, take care, enjoy the sunshine whether that's at home or abroad, and join us again soon for more from my 70s TV childhood.